Hi, welcome to Audiobook Academy. This is a self-paced audiobook. There's no need to keep an eye on things. Just pay attention. Thank you for taking the time to listen. This is a book summary of A New Earth. Awakening to Your Life's Purpose by Eckhart Tolle. What if we were able to recreate the planet? An examination of a world that often seems irrational and chaotic is the focus of A New Earth. By awakening our consciousness, Eckhart Tolle says, we can change the world for the better. A New Earth is based on an esoteric interpretation of the Bible where a new heaven is an awakened human consciousness, and a new earth is how this translates into a physical realm. This transformation will have a significant impact on all life forms. It is through Tolle's approach, which incorporates elements of both Christianity and Eastern spirituality, that he creates a spiritual framework that helps readers discover their true nature. On the one hand, our minds are always in some state of disarray. Original sin, as described by the author, involves living life without a clear understanding of what it is that we are here to accomplish in this life. These descriptions of spirituality reflect our unaware selves and the many mental processes that trap us. According to the author, wars and genocide of this century were sparked by these deep-seated dysfunctions. As a result, they can be held responsible for the ongoing violence of today. Greed, fear, and the desire for power are fueling the violence that threatens to destroy our planet. We'll briefly go over the book's insights to make us aware of how we're living in the world and its effects. A new consciousness will be awakened in us when we recognize our old egoic state of consciousness. Religious teachings have a lot to do with ideas of enlightenment, the end of pain, and salvation. For this reason, we must first recognize and deal with the dysfunction that exists within each of us, which Tolle describes as our source, before we can find and reconnect with the inherent goodness that already exists within us. The nature of dysfunction. Try this for a moment. Our ego keeps us attached to our thoughts and feelings, external objects, and our bodies. Is it possible to look at something without immediately forming a mental image of what it is? The more you look at it, the more awestruck you become. If you think of a chair as a canvas, think of Van Gogh's work as an example. Our reliance on words is challenged when we become more aware of how we use words. The problem is that once you use a word, and assign a value to something, you automatically believe you know what you're dealing with. A superficial reality replaces our perception of the object's inconceivable depth. To quickly assign a label is to miss out on the wonder of life. We can be imprisoned by the words we use. For our own well-being and that of the planet, we must overcome the challenge of thinking without consciousness, according to him. Because our thoughts are always in the forefront of our minds, we tend to over-identify with them. Let's take a look at some of the reasons. With the emphasis on I, we create a fictitious sense of self in our daily lives. A visual illusion of consciousness, as Albert Einstein termed it, is created entirely by our thoughts and feelings. When you're born with a mind-made I. Tolle calls this the false I. For example, Tolle recalls seeing a woman on the subway who was clearly struggling with mental illness. She screamed at herself incessantly and angrily throughout the trip. It dawned on him while wondering about her, that he was also speaking to himself. Suddenly, the realization that he was just like her dawned. The words we use to describe our thinking, and the thoughts they describe, are only a tiny fraction of our consciousness, but they keep us in a state of dysfunction. Descartes, according to Tolle, was mistaken when he said, "I think, therefore I am." Instead, he had discovered the source of ego. If you take Sartre's words to heart, the consciousness that says I am, isn't the consciousness that thinks, then being conscious of your thoughts is a separate entity. This is a fundamental aspect of a person's awoken state. The possessive and the desireful. An over-reliance on the word "my" can lead to an unhealthy over-identification with one's possessions, such as my car, my house, and my belongings. I have, therefore, I am, he says. Most people don't realize this until they're near death, when they realize that nothing they own has any bearing on who they are as individuals. Tolle doesn't ask us to give up our attachment to things, but rather to become aware of it. I am the awareness that is aware that there is attachment, he says. A strong desire for having makes the desire for wanting even more addictive. According to Eckhart Tolle, the ego is always looking for more. It's impossible to stop wanting once you have something. As a whole, the body can also be a source of identification for some people. All aspects of our lives are influenced by our early identification with a specific gender identity, appearance, or fitness and health. We can, however, train ourselves to become more aware of our internal sensations rather than our body's external form. Thus, a powerful inner energy field can be made visible to us. Is it possible for you to feel the life in your hands? Try focusing on your hands instead. Be aware of what's going on, And pay attention to how you feel. Take a closer look at your hands, and notice how they move and feel the touch. After that, move on to other parts of your body, starting with your feet. Self-awareness and formlessness, which he refers to as being, can both be achieved through such exercises. The way we respond to others is linked to our old consciousness. People's reactions to other people can range from blaming and complaining to actual violence between individuals, groups, and countries. This is a continuum. Complaining about others boosts our ego and distances us from the rest of the world's people. Seeing someone's actions as a result of their egos can help us avoid reacting. Being unaffected by others is crucial for Earth's survival because it allows the human ego to dissolve. Our greatest defense, according to Tolle, is a strength that brings out the wisdom in ourselves and others. However, this does not mean that we can't voice our concerns about the quality of the product. As a result of this, our fault-finding is often accompanied by feelings of resentment or anger. As a result, resentment grows, and eventually a nation's collective psyche is shaped, leading to a cycle of violence that can last for years. Self-centeredness and arrogance are the result of clinging to one's ego and believing one is better than others. As long as we believe we're right and others are wrong, we'll continue to whine, which feeds our inflated egos. In conflict situations, each party is convinced of their own story and refuses to accept a different version of events. The truth of each is unchanging. In dealing with the ego, whether it's our own or someone else's, we must practice non-reaction. This understanding of our shared condition allows us to be more forgiving of others. If religions are viewed as ideology, they will only serve the ego, according to Tolle. However, if people move beyond this, all faiths refer to the goodness within. Buddhism and Hinduism both speak of the indwelling God, and Jesus spoke of the Christ in us. Accepting our imperfections and embracing our essential beingness. Tolle recalls seeing a sign in front of a burned-out house that said, "Remember the power of now. Danger," was the message on the sign. He believes that if you take this as a statement about life, you'll find some inner peace. It may allow us to get to the stable parts of the system. We can count on our fundamental beingness to remain constant because it is always present in the background of our daily lives. Our egos, on the other hand, have many faces. We may have a stereotypical role or occupation, which we believe defines us. It's also possible that we're living through our children because we've become too identified with our parental role. You're still playing a character even if you don't realize it. No matter what the situation, we won't have to be anyone in particular if we can learn to live in the now. Ego isn't a fan of the present. What have you done or said in the past that keeps you from being at peace right now? Another possibility is that you believe something is preventing you from experiencing lasting happiness in the future. Our lives are defined by these feelings. We all have moments of regret about the past or the future. Your time orientation should be grounded in the here and now in order for you to feel calm. The ego doesn't like where you are right now, so it begins to try and move you. A good place to begin is by recognizing your current state of negativity. Tolle is of the opinion that our negativity serves a purpose, whether it's our own gain from being miserable or the gain of making someone else miserable. To begin awakening, one must first become aware of how much one enjoys being negative. Those who can witness are said to have a conscious presence. However, there are times when we can let go of our egos. Some people who excel at their jobs find it to be a spiritual practice at times. They're in the here and now. Businesses, schools, and communities that cultivate an enlightened consciousness could help speed up the process of planetary shifts. The pain body is something we have to deal with. Dysfunctional thinking causes negative emotions in our bodies. You believe what you tell yourself, which manifests itself in your emotions. Emotions then feed back into the thoughts, and the cycle continues. Threats and challenges are met by our body's innate intelligence. Differentiating between an automatic reaction to danger and a physical reaction to an idea is critical. Our bodies, despite their intelligence, are unable to distinguish between a thought and an actual event. Consequently, every thought is treated as if it were real, especially negative ones. This accumulation of negative emotional responses, known as pain body, can be reduced by returning our attention to the here and now, rather than listening to our storytelling minds. Every one of us carries some sort of emotional scar from our upbringing. It's a problem when our pain body affects other people's pain body. A relationship with a person also includes a relationship with their pain-inflicting body. Some people's bodies are constantly in pain, and they react strongly to even the most insignificant of events. In the midst of others' pain bodies, we need to resist our own intense reactions and stay in the moment. There are physical and spiritual practices like Tai Chi that can help reduce pain and change the collective energy field. How to get rid of the pain body? The first step is to recognize that you and others have a unique pain body story. It becomes less powerful when you know you're experiencing the pain body. You can find wholeness by allowing yourself to feel whatever arises. By recognizing the abundance both within and around us, we can help to strengthen this wholeness even further. It doesn't matter if we're just greeting a stranger with a smile, we can all become givers in some small way. We can also train ourselves to be less averse to our tendency to prioritize time. Spiritual teacher Krishnamurti once said, "My secret is I don't mind what happens." He wasn't afraid of the future and didn't categorize events as good or bad. In what way do you want to interact with the present moment in your life? If you want to get along with your ego, you have to be the one to initiate contact. There are 3 ways in which the ego views the present. Because of the importance of a future moment, it is viewed as a means to an end. Aside from that, it can be seen as something of a hindrance. In other words, you need to overcome it before you can enjoy happiness. Thirdly, it can be viewed as the enemy, where you hate what you do and where you are. Our task is to select those that are applicable to our unique situation. We also need to consider psychological time, which examines how we move between the past, the present, and the future. Space consciousness can be recognized when we're in the now. You realize that you have an affinity for space, its essence of nothingness, and its silence and depth when you gaze up at night at the sky. A sense of self-awareness is fostered as a result of it. We must find a way to counterbalance this awareness of space with our mental clutter. To awaken, we must see the inner stillness as a backdrop to the external activity. Our thoughts can be found in everyday things, such as the sound of rain, the movement of clouds in the sky, or simply being kind to someone. However, awareness necessitates a state of inner calm. Be still is the admonition here. Look. Listen. Stay present. Look at a nearby object, such as a pen or cup, to get your bearings. Focus on the object, but don't let yourself get distracted by it. Expand this by looking around the room and seeing what you can find. Then, without making any judgments about whether or not the sounds are pleasant or irritating, pay attention to them. As a result of this exercise, you may notice a peaceful calmness in the background. Taking a deep breath can help you focus on something other than your thoughts. You can also pay attention to the spaciousness of your own body. To sum it up, there is a reason for everything we do, both inside and outside of ourselves. There are 3 components to our new consciousness: acceptance, joy, and ecstasy. Acknowledging that you must do something with equanimity is the definition of acceptance. Having fun and being enthusiastic about your work are the definitions of enjoyment and enthusiasm, respectively. Eckhart Tolle believes this new and awakened consciousness can change everything about our world. Human consciousness cannot be separated from Earth's life, as evidenced by an awakened consciousness. Seeing beauty in a flower could awaken humans, however briefly, to the beauty that is an essential part of their own innermost being, their true nature, says Tolle. Change, it is said, begins with one's own family. According to Tolle, the world will be changed for the better if we transform our own consciousness. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Please don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. See you in next audiobook.